Edutrainment Workshops, the insurance industry's leading education and training platform, presents Life Insurance, the entry-level series, the products, the underwriting, and the planning applications to position your practice as the premier provider of insurance products in your community. Get on board, get on track, get to where you're going. And now, your Edutrainer, national insurance columnist, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, your Edutrainer and coach for our series, Introduction into Life Insurance, or Entry Level into Life Insurance. And today we're doing our introduction all this week into underwriting, and today's is basic medical information. Before we get into that again, I want you to remember to go out to this site to download the Eclipse illustration software constructed by Lincoln Benefit Life. We voted it as the most easy user-friendly software we've ever used, and we think that people coming into our business will really enjoy learning how to do life insurance, term and perm, on a great platform like this. Just go out to their site and download it, www.lblsales.com/ETW. That's www.lblsales.com/ETW. And remember, you can also order the life insurance manual and our life insurance vocabulary. Just write me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com. That's thebiz, THEBIZ, at brokersalliance.com, and I'll be happy to send it to you absolutely free. Well, when you go ahead and download this, we'll want to be able to go page for page with me next week as we enter into LBL software. So don't forget to download it, and then you'll be able to do the same things we do. And I think it's a really good learning experience, not only to have it, but also go page to page with me. All right, well, let's just get into it. I'm looking, and this is not a truly medical part two, but it really helps me understand what I need. They're kind of like knockout questions. What I'm using is, I'm using a technology that we use in-house. What it does for it, it weighs out all the information I'm going to input into it, and then it's going to go out and score it with different carriers. And this platform is used exclusively on term. It can kind of help me on permanent products, but it was really built for term insurance quantification from an underwriting point of view. So what I do is, the first thing I'm going to look at is height and weight. Now, when I think about height and weight, in the old days, it was narrow. There was a field. You couldn't really have a couple extra pounds and so forth, because they were really trying to see how much you could really fit within the parameters of whether it was super preferred, preferred plus, preferred non-smoker, standard plus, or standard. And even in ratings, we still look at some of these things because you may have an issue on a disease, but you have mitigating issues like weight. You're too heavy for your size frame. So what I can do is I can plug in 5'11". Now, at 5'11", 259, that is a little outside most people's numbers. That doesn't mean you're going to get dinged for it, but you're not going to get super preferred for it right away. So when I look at numbers like this, I can also know there are certain carriers that are excellent at high weights. So even at 5'11", we might be in the 275 to 290 and still be able to write this and make sense. So even though I might have weight, depending upon the carrier. So if everything else was okay, but the height and weight were the problem, I really had a BMI issue, then I'm going to go to the carriers that I think are the most benevolent when it comes to heavyweights. The next thing I'm going to look at right away, because it's really going to make a choice on what grids we're going to use, is I need to know immediately what kind of tobacco use. And then yesterday we spent the whole class talking about our workshop about tobacco usage, whether it was cigar, cigarette, chew, pipe. We wanted to know what kind of nicotine-based products did you use? And I can bring this down and say, oh, I'm a current user. I've had none in the last year, none in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I haven't smoked in the last 5 years. And remember our grid yesterday, which if you want that, you can just order it. Say, Steve, I want your smoking grids. No problem. Order the biz at brokersalliance.com and we'll send it to you. And so let's say if I wanted to put in here, I'm a never smoker. So that's just me. And I'm not 259, so no problem. Blood pressure. I want to know what my blood pressure is. Now, if I know it, I can plug it in. And I can put those numbers in and type it in. And I can type it into the lower one. Mine just happens to be 117/79. I take 20 milligrams of lisinopril to manage my hypertension. No surprise there, I'm sure, to my audience. Are you taking any blood pressure medication? I would have to say, if it was me, I would have to say yes. So I would say that, and then they're going to say, later on, I can kind of measure, is that a lot or not because of my experience? But this is just to get us in the game, remember. We're just trying to quote within the realm of what we think we're going to get. It's not that specific yet. Now notice, on our next column, cholesterol level. What is our cholesterol level? What is your HDL ratio? Well, my cholesterol level, last time I checked, was just under 200, which is good, but I'd rather have it about 180. Ideally, if I was a vegan, maybe 160. But my HDL ratio was kind of high last time, 5.0. Now, not high to knock me out of preferred status or anything like that, but I'm up at the upper range. So at my age now, I have to kind of watch that now because it's now becoming an issue for my health, and it's becoming an issue as we creep into different underwriting classifications. Remember, this page really manages non-rated health classifications like super preferred, preferred plus, preferred non-smokers, as well as standard plus and standard. Now, when I get into this, I want to be able to say, am I taking any cholesterol medication, which is different than taking cardiovascular or hypertension medication? I look at this and I have to say yes or no. I'm not taking any myself, so I'm going to say no for today. It says, have any of your family members, parents or siblings, been diagnosed with cancer prior to age 70? So if one of your loved ones, your mom or your dad or your brothers or your sisters, have been exposed to this tragedy of having cancer in the family, you would have to say, oh yes, and they had cancer prior to age 70. You'd have to say yes. And they're measuring your disposition yourself within your family for cancer. Have any of your family members, parents or siblings, been diagnosed with a cardiovascular disease prior to age 70? Again, you'd have to say yes or no, depending upon if mom or dad or any of your blood brothers, full blood brothers or sisters have this. And so I'd be able to say yes or no accordingly. Now, medical history. If I start off having hypertension like I have, I might go and say, okay, I've been managing it. And so I was at 40 megs of lisinopril. Now I'm down to 20. If I really wanted to get off it completely, I would have to completely walk away from meat, which I'm not willing to do. But I am willing to look at better meats like chicken and fish, turkey, instead of always steaks, red meats, ribs, pulled pork, all those things I absolutely love. And then when I'm looking at that, I want to be able to put down, oh, did I have any other issues? Did I have any other diseases? Maybe I have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Maybe I've had a cardiovascular event, an actual attack or arrhythmia, something that came up in an exam. I want to put all my medical history in there, so I say, do I have anything severe which has been diagnosed? And if it's yes, then I have to fill that in. And again, remember, if I'm going to say no, here's the list. And it's quite an extensive list, as you can see. So we're talking about asthma and cancer and coronary artery disease, Crohn's, depression, diabetes, epilepsy or convulsions, gastric ulcers, heart attacks, hepatitis, kidney or liver. These are what they would call major or severe medical conditions. Lupus. Now remember, they're not knockouts. They're just there to make sure that we can kind of measure what we have. Melanoma, and especially in the state that I broadcast from here in Arizona, that's a concern, and we always try to cover up and not lay out in the sun in vanity. And now we're looking at mental and emotional disorders. Some people would say I might have those myself, but multiple sclerosis, any of these items, I just want to look down here and look at it. Stroke, rheumatoid arthritis, sleep apnea, ulcerative colitis, and any kind of vascular disease. I'm always trying to look at plugging that in so that I can kind of get an idea what that cost is going to be before I even go down and submit it to underwriting. Then I want to look at driving record. Now this is a little different now. It says, how many have I had? How many DUIs or DWIs, depending upon the state language, every state's different. How many moving violations or reckless driver? In fact, I just had my first ticket after 12 years of stellar record. I got caught about 15 blocks from my home going 10 over, and I told the officer he was ruining my stainless record. He didn't seem to care, and I got a ticket. Had to go to the course. But it was only a couple miles over, and that's not going to be an issue. But if I got 3 or 4 tickets, that's going to be an issue, and especially if there's speed, you have a greater propensity to be in an accident and a greater propensity then to be exposed to death. How many times have you had your license revoked or suspended? Well, I can say faithfully in front of everyone here today, at least for the last 40 years, I've been golden. So I want to look at that. Now, when I'm thinking about driving record, I want to be able to look at different categories. And here I'm at the Motor Vehicle Report grid. And again, if you want this grid, just go ahead and order it, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, and I'm happy to send it to you. The Motor Vehicle Grid, this grid is really great because it really breaks out all the carriers and how they actually view MVR reports. So if I want to have a preferred plus, in this carrier's example, I need to have 1 violation in 3 years, no DUIs, no reckless, no revocation, no suspension for the last 5 years. If I have any of those, that could knock me out of the preferred plus class. So if the client doesn't tell me the truth, they're still going to scan the motor vehicle for the state that they're domiciled in. So just a heads up, we're going to find out about it sooner or later. It's better to always answer honestly on the app than to omit something and then the underwriter's wondering, why did you omit it? So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at all the MVRs. And I look at this because everybody, again, is so different. This is why I say there's no standardization. Carriers view different issues, and this is a behavior issue, not a disease issue. But it has impact on mortality. That's why we look at it. So I might look at another carrier that says, we'll get preferred, their top of the line preferred premier up to age 70, no more than 2 moving violations in the past 3 years, no DUIs or reckless in the last 5. So again, looking at each one, and here as an example, AXA has 4 different categories that they're going to let you look at, and those 4 categories, they're 2 preferred and they're 2 standard, and they're going to manage the difference. And the only reason I want to point them out is because this is an endemic of the industry, how we're slicing and parsing these issues. Preferred elite, they're all age 44 or younger, in these 3 examples, except for the last one, age 69 or younger. So my first 3 is age 44, no moving violations in the last 3 years, and 1 moving violation in the last, no moving violations or no DUIs or reckless, and then it goes to preferred non-tobacco. It starts to add different categories as you go down. They become tighter, or more benevolent. So by the time you get down to standard non-tobacco, standard plus non-tobacco, the age is higher. The moving violations could be up to 3 in the last 3 years, but you still can't have any DUI or reckless driving in your record. Again, going through this list, it'll help you already decipher who is going to, if you have a problem client who has motor vehicle behavioral issues, this is an excellent chart to look at because that's going to be part of our entire view of how we're looking at it. Another thing that we look at, believe it or not, is the questionnaire is going to say, are you a felon or have you done time in prison? Depending upon what the crime was, and depending upon how it was adjudicated, and what kind of probation record you had, it's all going to be different on what carrier is going to be benevolent and look at this. Obviously, coming off a 25-year murder charge, sitting in maximum security or on death row is going to slightly taint your record, and you're going to have problems getting the better preferred areas. But it's not a deal killer. I'm just telling you, they want to know what it is, how long you've been out, do you have third-party records? And that's another little thing I just want to tip you to. When we have behavioral issues, some people actually go through a transformation. Maybe they had a DUI, maybe they've done time on a DUI yard, which may be a misdemeanor in some states, but other states treat it as a felony. So it's really interesting. You have to kind of look at it. And again, with this documentation, you can look at all these different carriers. Here's the second page on the info. Actually, I think it goes to 3 pages, if I remember correctly. Yes, it does. So you can look at all these carriers and manage into the ground your client's specific MVR. And I just want to give you a heads up again. We'll be able to look at this. We're going to go see it anyway. So it always is good for your client to always tell the truth. Hey, I had 2 or 3 tickets. I had a DUI 3 or 4 years ago. Be honest. Tell them what you're doing. They're going to follow it up with alcohol issues. And that leads me to my last. Alcohol, addiction, drugs, prescription or non-prescription drugs, or street drugs. We're going to want to know all about it. It's going to show up in the urine exam more than likely into the blood. So it's always good to collect this. And when I go through that answer page that I showed you, you'll be able to measure this out and have a preemptive quote for your client.
This has been an Edutrainment Workshop, the educational division of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, and sponsored by Lincoln Benefit Life. an Allstate company.